I'm Mondo, and I'm here to help you with your board game design. I'm a developer for The Op, which is a board game publishing company known for Gnome Hollow and Flip. And before I worked for The Op, I was an independent designer that spent 8 years pitching my games to multiple publishers, several of which I got under contract and are out on the market now. If you're new to board game design, it can be really intimidating to navigate the whole process, especially when it comes time to pitch your first game. So in this video, I'm going to lay out a step-by-step process on how to pitch games to publishers. Now, arguably the most important consideration is the quality of the game that you're pitching. If your board game does get signed and goes into the market, it's going to be in direct competition with every other board game out there. So in order for your game to be interesting to a publisher, they have to believe that it's doing something better than every other game, and then it's going to outperform the games that are already out there. In order to get a game to that place, it's important that you playtest your game like crazy. As designers, we're often blind to the issues within our own games, so having other people play it is extremely important. Now that's a whole nother video, but it's important to understand that your game isn't good just because you feel like it's good. It's good if multiple playtesters are telling you that it's really, really good, and those playtesters play a lot of games and understand what makes a good game and can articulate their feelings and why they like it. And that means you need to get your game in front of as many people as you can and as many different types of gamers as you can. Again, I can make a whole video on ways to do that and resources for that, but I'm going to keep going here. Now, once your game is up to that standard, you need to start thinking about the vision that you have for the game itself. Think about potential artwork that you might want on it or the type of gamer that it's going to appeal to. That's going to help you find a publisher when the time comes. But before we talk about that, let's talk about the materials that you're going to need to pitch. The first and most important piece of this is a sell sheet. A sell sheet is a one-page document that tells the publisher what the game's about, what it looks like on the table, what players are doing, and why it's fun. That's another whole video, but for reference, you can look at the back of any board game in your collection and see what a sell sheet more or less looks like. Take my game, for example. This is By the Seashore. And this is a sell sheet. It's minimal text, good visual representation of the game, and it explains how to play and what's fun about it. After you have a sell sheet together, you need to make a sizzle video. At this stage in the board game design world, it's essential that you have a video when you send it to a publisher. Publishers might get hundreds or thousands of submissions every year, so if they can see a little 3-4 minute video about your game, it'll give them a quick reference to understand whether or not it's something that they want to pursue more or learn more about. Examples of good sizzle videos can be found on any social media platform by content creators that are making videos about published games. Again, that's another video entirely, but here are some creators for reference. The third thing you need before you pitch is a complete rules document. Now, it's understood that the rules document that you submit doesn't have to be completely flawless or edited to a T, but you do want a complete set of rules that's as well organized as you can make it and includes, again, the entire rule set. Finally, you're going to need a functional prototype and maybe multiple. A lot of pitch meetings that I've been to, the publishers have been interested in the game that I'm showing them, and they've asked if they can take it home. Having that prototype available for an in-person pitch is pretty crucial, because if you can just hand them the game for them to take home if they're interested in it, then they're going to be able to get it to the table and reference it and not have to do a bunch of follow-up that's going to add time and put it to the bottom of the queue. Now again, that's a completely different video, but for making prototypes, you just need it to be perfectly functional and have a decent visual representation of the theme of the game. And make sure that you're not spending a lot of money on a prototype. It's okay for this game to be homemade with clip art that you found on the internet. Finally, when you have all your materials together, it's time to reach out. Now, the best way to do that is to reference that vision that you developed for your game and go find publishers out there that are making games that would meet that criteria or serve that type of market. If it's a children family game, don't go pitch it to a publisher that makes big strategy 4X games, and vice versa. When you've identified one or more publishers, you go to those websites and you find their contact information. Most publishers, especially smaller publishers, will have some type of guidelines for submitting games to them. That might be an email address or a contact form, it really depends. But figure out how that publisher wants you to submit their game and submit it through that process. Now, when you submit your game, you want to provide an elevator pitch that's no longer than a paragraph about the highlights of your game. Talk very briefly about the theming, talk about what the turns look like, talk about what people like about it or why it's good. Try to keep it brief. Your video and your sell sheet are going to do most of the heavy lifting for your game. And the most important consideration here is that you're professional when you contact these publishers. Don't try to oversell your game. Don't say things that aren't true. Remember that the people that take these submissions are people, and the initial impression that you make when you submit your game is going to follow you throughout the process. Now, as I said, this email should include a PDF of your sell sheet as well as a link to your video. You don't have to send a rule set, and never send a unsolicited prototype to a publisher, because this initial contact is just starting the conversation. It should communicate, here are the details of my game, here's what it looks like, and if you want to know more, I'd love to show you more. At that point, if a publisher is interested, then they will follow up and they will ask about the game, and you'll be able to give more detail and show them the game. Now, if the publisher is interested, there are a couple of ways that it may go. Most pitch meetings these days happen virtually, so it's important if you're able to create a digital version of your game. The best two sites for that are Tabletopia and an app called Tabletop Simulator that you can buy on Steam. Creating those digital prototypes will open the door for those meetings and make them so much easier to get into. But the other option is an in-person pitch that will usually happen at a convention. If a publisher is attending a convention and they have time and are taking pitches, then they may be willing to sit down with you and let you show them your game. In my opinion, this is the best way to do it, but it does bring with it some added costs. But if you can make that happen, set that up, keep it professional, and hopefully they'll be excited to see your game. Now, I will talk about what a pitch meeting should look like or how to do that in a future video, but for now, there you go. Hopefully this was helpful. Good luck.